All right, story time again, fellas. And tonight we are going to be talking about the ex-girlfriend who dumped me when I hit rock bottom. Okay, basically when I lost everything in the stock market crash of 2000. Just left me when I lost everything, right? Left me when I had nothing. Moved on to another guy. Moved on to the BBD, the bigger, better deal. Just left me for dead. And then turned around and cried when I became successful. Let's talk about her in tonight's coaching video. And no, this is not the ex from 2006. Okay, this is actually the ex before her. So this is a girl that I haven't talked a whole lot about, but I'm just going to share this story very quickly with you, as quickly as I can. So basically I dated this girl in the late 90s and all the way up until about 2001. So we were together for about 3 or 4 years. I met her at a Mexican restaurant, actually. She was sitting there with her girlfriend, and I saw a ton of guys trying to hit on her, trying to pick her up. And I was there with a couple of my football buddies, and they were like, hey, Mr. Pickup. They were like, go get it. And they were like, I'll be impressed if you could get her. I mean, I remember they were like, Matt's Mr. Gamer, I'll be so impressed if you could get that girl. And I looked at her and I was like, wow, she's pretty hot. And they're like, yeah, dude, she's like rejecting guy after guy after guy who comes over from the bar. And they're like, if you could get that girl, I will be impressed. So it was a good challenge for me. And I remember even when I was like kind of checking her out, I was like, wow, she's really pretty. I felt a connection between us. I mean, I was like, I'm like totally into this girl, right? And it's that type of connection where it's beyond just like a sexual thing or a lust thing. Even though she was hot, I was like, wow, I could picture myself kind of dating this girl. And I didn't even talk to her yet, right? So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go talk to her. I'm gonna see what's up with this chick. So I go over there, strike up conversation with her. And her name's, I can't give out her name, obviously. Let's just say her name's Donatella. So I go over and I introduce myself. I'm like, hey, my name's Matt. She's like, oh, my name's Donatella, right? I remember because I had just come from working out with my football buddies, I was not dressed up. She was all nicely dressed and everything. I was literally wearing shorts, a cutoff t-shirt, and a baseball cap backwards. I did not look my best, right? But when these opportunities pop up, like I teach you guys, you just have to go for it, right? You just have to go for it. I went for it, and she kind of found it endearing because every guy who approached her that night, because it was kind of a decent, nice Mexican restaurant, right? Every guy that approached her that night was pretty decently dressed, right? I mean, they're all pretty dressed and smelling good and cologne and all this. And I mean, again, me and my buddies just came from working out and we're just kind of grabbing appetizers and, a few beers and we're going to leave. So I saw her and I just went over there, shorts, baseball cap, started talking to her. Again, I think she just found it more relatable than me being all dressed up like everybody else was. She was just kind of like, oh, this guy's just kind of like down to earth, right? So we were talking, I introduced myself. She was there with her girlfriend. Her girlfriend was kind of a bitch. I remember that. She was just not very nice to me. So I was polite anyway. And then I asked her for her number. I was like, hey, let's, we should chat sometime. This is before mainstream internet. This is before social media. So she gave me her phone number. I ended up calling her. We ended up talking on the phone. And it was on pretty quickly. I remember I asked her out for dinner, and she was like, you mind if we go to lunch first? And I was like, okay, fine. We went to lunch, and then kind of just got a little more comfortable with each other. And then that very night, we went to dinner together, right? It's funny. It was funny because we saw each other twice in the same day, which I don't recommend doing. I wouldn't do that today. I would kind of like just tell her like, no, let's just go to dinner. I would skip the whole lunch thing. But anyway, so from that point on, we were totally into each other, and she was like really hot at that time. She was like, even though she was in her late 20s, from what I remember, yeah, she was in her late 20s. I was in my early 20s. She was a few years older than me. She was really strikingly gorgeous. She just was really, really attractive, and really nice body too. So she had a lot of guys like who would just constantly check her out. So we ended up dating for about 3, 4 years, I want to say, maybe 3.5, 4 years, somewhere around there. It was a pretty volatile relationship. The main reason it was volatile was because I was doing a lot of mate guarding. I was like blue pill back then, so I would get super jealous when guys would check her out, or guys would constantly like look at her, and I mean, I was mate guarding, right? I was just like constantly getting jealous. And I look back on those days now and I kind of laugh about it. I'm like, why on earth was I so jealous? Because I was actively doing cold approach back then. I knew I could get hot girlfriends. I had gotten hot girlfriends before her. So it wasn't like I was in scarcity. I just felt like it was almost like my natural default state as a man to just mate guard, right? So I was doing a lot of mate guarding, and of course, whenever you mate guard, whenever you act out jealous and possessive, it lowers your value in the girl's eye. It really kills your value, guys, because this chick was really into me in the beginning, and I just continued to kill my value because I was mate guarding, right? It's not like she didn't do that either, because there were times where she would get jealous too, like if another girl would check me out, or if I just start talking to another girl, like say we're out together and like somebody next to us would start talking to us and the girl just started paying attention to me a little bit more than normal, she would kind of act out and get jealous as well. So it was pretty volatile in that sense, like we're constantly jealous of each other. In any case, it was a pretty decent relationship, right? She was looking to settle down, get married and all that, but obviously she wanted somebody who was stable. And at the time I had a business, believe it or not, I did have a business at the time that was fairly stable. It wasn't very scalable, I'll say that, but it was fairly stable in the sense that, you know, I wasn't broke or anything, and we could afford to like go out and eat whenever we wanted. We would take vacations every once in a while. Nothing at the level where I am now, but in any case, I had a business and we're doing pretty good, and we would always talk about like our dreams. She'd be like, it's really my dream to own a Mercedes one day, and I would tell her about my dreams, and you know, I'd be like, oh, one day I want to be able to buy a DeLorean. I kid you not, I was like, I want to be able to buy a DeLorean, oh, and a classic Corvette Stingray, like a mid-60s Corvette Stingray. That's what I really want. And lo and behold, I ended up accomplishing that. But to make a long story short, we had all these dreams together, had all these plans, and I really thought that this chick like cared about me, that she loved me, right? And I remember my parents, even at the time, my parents really liked her, right? My parents like, this is perfect, right? She's gorgeous. My dad would be like, man, she's beautiful. Marry that girl, right? And I'm like, yeah, man, we'll see what happens, right? So what happened was, I want to say it was like the 3rd year we were dating, the stock market started crashing, and I had invested, I mean, at one point the stock market was doing this, it was doing nothing but going up. So I had taken pretty much like all of my money and I put it in the stock market because it was going like this, right? So every day I was making thousands of dollars just in the stock market, right? Just leaving my money in there. And then in the 2000s, if you remember, if you're old enough, the stock market began to crash. Today it's known as the dot-com bubble, the dot-com crash, whatever you want to call it. But it was basically the time when the stock market started crashing. So the stock market started crashing and I proceeded to lose everything, like literally everything. Everything I had made, everything I had saved, it was all in the stock market, and I proceeded to lose it all. The funny thing was, even though I lost everything and it basically disappeared within like a 3-month time frame, it was crazy how fast like my money disappeared. It like within 3 months it was like gone. And she was like, what are you gonna do? And I'm like, let me get some credit cards, right? So I started applying for some credit cards, and I'm like, let me credit card my way through this and then I'll figure it out. She was like, are you serious? You're just gonna live off your credit cards? And I'm like, yeah, don't worry, it'll be fine. Oddly, I mean, I always believed in myself. So the funny thing was, even though I was like, you know, kind of just distraught that I lost all my money in the stock market, I believed in myself, and I was like, I'll be back. I just never thought twice about it. It's just not part of my personality to lose faith in myself. Even if you were to strip me naked and leave me on the street with nothing, penniless, I know I would be back within a year. I mean, I would just be back. I just have that personality. So when the stock market crashed and I lost everything, I noticed she was panicking. like way more than I was. And I was like, you know, what are you so worried about? And I remember at that time, she started picking a lot of fights with me. So we started arguing a lot. And it's not like it was over money. It was more or less the fact that she felt uncertainty. She was like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna be 30 in a couple of years. She was like, oh my gosh, you know, what are your plans and this and that? I'm like, relax. I'm not asking you for money. I'm not asking you to carry me. I said, don't worry, we'll be fine. And she was like, well, you're getting credit cards. You're gonna end up in debt and all this other stuff. And I'm like, that's okay, I'll pay it off. Right? I mean, I always had like a positive attitude, but her attitude was just abandoning ship. These days, I mean, yeah, I'm a little forgiving because I can understand from a female perspective, especially her perspective. She was like, you know, I'm putting all my chips on the table for you and you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. What if we end up homeless together? What if, you know, she's like, I don't want to ride this out with you. In not so many words, but that's essentially what was being communicated to me through all these fights, arguments. She was constantly throwing hissy fits at this time, just picking on me. Like it seemed like she was just constantly picking on me about something. I remember one day, like she was at work, right? And I was at home and she was like, oh, there's this program on today. I think it was like a talk show. She's like, since you're there, can you pop in a tape and record it for me? And this is back in like, you know, when people, before we had digital files, right? So she was like, can you record it for me? Just throw in a blank tape and tape it. And I'm like, oh yeah, sure. And I just forgot about it. It just kind of slipped my mind. I mean, it didn't seem like a big deal, but I got caught up doing something else. So she comes home and she was like, oh, did you tape the program? And I was like, oh shit, I forgot. She flew off the handle. I couldn't believe how upset. She flew off the handle, yelling practically. And then she started bringing up all this other stuff. And I'm like, whoa, where is this coming from? What is going on, right? And she was like, I'm sick of you. I'm sick of this. You know, she was like, this is bullshit. And the relationship just started going south at that point. And the funny thing was, it's not like I ever asked her for a dime. I never asked this chick ever to be like, oh, can you take care of the power bill this month? I never did. I was like, oh, I got a credit card. Right? My credit was pretty good. So I was like, I'll put on my card. And I think I had applied for like 3 cards at that time to just kind of get me through this rough patch. But she just lost faith in me. She was just like, you know, she's like, statistically, if you're trying to start over in your 30s, she's like, it's just, the odds are completely against you. You know, it's more likely that you're just going to keep failing. And I'm like, why are you talking to me like that, right? Why are you talking to me like it's over? You know, that my life is over because the stock market crashed? I'm like, it'll come back. You know, and if it doesn't, you know what? I'll find another business opportunity. I'm like, I'll get a job. I'll do something. She was like, what kind of job you going to get? I mean, there was just like no faith whatsoever. So around this time, she started disappearing. I noticed like she wasn't just coming home from work, just started coming home a little bit later and a little bit later and a little bit later. And when I would ask her, I'm like, where are you going after work? Oh, we're just going to go to a little happy hour. Happy hour? You know, and this became a common theme. Just a little going to happy hour with my girlfriend, just blow off some steam. You know, and I didn't think much of it. I'm like, fine, go off to happy hour. And then she started like disappearing on the weekends. I'm like, where are you going this weekend? Oh, I'm going with my girlfriend. She lives out by Livermore. So I'm going to go stay in Livermore because we're all the way in San Francisco at the time. I'm going to stay with my girlfriend in Livermore. Like leaves Friday after work, shuts off her phone, doesn't come back till Monday, right? I'm like, really? Really? And essentially one day she comes back. She was like, I want to end this. I mean, and at that point, I was just kind of like, screw it, end it, right? Because I was tired of being treated the way she was treating me. She was like treating me really, really bad at this point. I mean, it was really bad. And like, I think back on it and I try to be forgiving, right? Because I'm Catholic. I try to be forgiving, but I look back on it and, you know, it's hard not to be resentful of some of the things she said and did back then, right? But it's so far in the past. So long story short, she comes home one day and she's like, I just want this to be over. I'm like, well, what to be over? She was like, you know what? I just want this to be over. I need a guy who's more mature. I need a guy who's more stable, you know, is not trying to live off his credit cards. I need a guy who actually has a plan. I need a guy, you know, she was basically saying all these things, and she was like, I think it was a mistake for me to date a younger guy, because I was a few years younger than her, right? And she was like, I think it was a mistake and I just need to date somebody else. Little did I know, she had already met somebody else. She met a guy who was like much older than her, right? And apparently he had his own house, and apparently, I don't know if she met him through work or happy hour, but apparently, yeah, they did business with her company or something like that. And so she was like, I'm leaving. And I'm like, are you serious? And I'm like, I'm still trying to get through this, you know, stock market crash. I'm like, do you just not trust me to come back? She was just like, I don't want to take that risk, essentially is what she said. I don't want to take that risk. So she took off. She like literally left like that. I mean, same day, same night, gone. After almost 4 years together. Like literally together 4 years, day in and day out. She just literally like one night up and gone. Wow, right? Wow. And again, I didn't really try to stop her because I had already kind of grown resentful of the way she was treating me. And not believing in me, especially. That's one thing I can't stand is disloyalty. I can't stand that. So she left, went off with this guy. And so this guy, apparently, I don't know what happened with their relationship, but fast forward, last I heard, as of recently, this chick is living in a like really shitty, dangerous part of Hayward, California, if you guys are familiar with Hayward. Kind of like in like the worst part of Hayward. And no offense if you live in Hayward, because there are some nicer parts of Hayward, but she lives in like a pretty sketchy area of Hayward in a rundown building. I don't know if she bought that or if she's renting it, but barely making her payments there. And still single. Still trying to lock down a high value guy. Still looking for that guy, that high value guy that's successful, that she could, you know, go the distance with. And now it's like, dude, this chick is way past her prime. And she's been made aware, right? Or she found my YouTube channel somehow. She's found my social media. Actually, it's a friend of mine that I used to play football with. His girlfriend, who is now his wife, is kind of like quasi friends with her. So they talk back and forth, and obviously this guy, because I played ball with him, he's like, oh shit, Matt's on YouTube, and actually, yeah, I follow him on Instagram, and actually he's doing like kick-ass, he's doing really well, and he's become successful, and this and that, and oh yeah, he bought that Mercedes you guys were talking about. Oh, he bought that DeLorean he was talking about. Oh yeah, he's totally crushing it. And she's just like, I don't want to hear it. Stop talking about it. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. Like, it actually upsets her. This is what he was telling me, this guy. He was like, dude, she's actually upset. It is like, and we're just talking about it in conversation, right? And he was like, yeah, she's just like totally freaks out about it. Very much like my ex from 2006. Could have been with me. Could have had it. We could have done it together. But like most women, you know, and if you're female watching this, the moral of this story is, you know what? The grass is not always greener on the other side. Because a lot of these chicks have shiny object syndrome. They think the grass is greener on the other side, that though the next guy's going to sweep me off my feet. And sometimes you're already with that guy, right? You're already with that guy. And you have to be able to identify if this guy is going to become something in life, if he is going to pop. If he does pop one day and you made the decision, you know, 10, 15 years earlier to dump him or to cut him off because you didn't think he was going anywhere, guess whose fault that is? That's your fault. When you're in your 20s and you have all these high value guys throwing themselves at you, it's very easy to take that for granted. And you know what? You shouldn't. Okay? You shouldn't. Especially if you invest 3 or 4 years of your life with a guy, you have to give that guy some credit. Okay, you have to give him some sort of credit, and you have to have some sort of faith in him, especially if you were with him that long. And you have to look at how much he believes in himself, because if that guy believes in himself and he doesn't quit, there's a very good chance that at some point in his life, he is probably going to succeed. Okay, different story if the guy's like a drug addict, friggin' alcoholic, putting needles in his arm. Yeah, different story. Leave that guy, right? Dump his ass. Dump his loser ass. But if the guy is like on his, on his path and purpose, or if he's out there constantly just pounding the pavement, trying to make something happen, constantly just has a positive attitude about life, and he just keeps hammering away, chances are at some point he's going to strike gold. And you want to make sure you're there with him if you want to be part of that. Because it's very easy when you're in your 20s and you have all these high value guys throwing themselves at you to be like, oh, there'll always be another one. There'll always be another one. But you ask any woman who's in her 30s, 40s, especially her 50s, you could ask her, is there always another one? And she'll be like, no, honey. They stop coming around the day you turn 30. The day you turn 30, it's like these guys could just sense it. Like, oh, 30, ooh, yee. I mean, that's the harsh reality of it. A lot of females, they don't like it when I say that, especially girls who are over 30, who are still single, still, still not married, still no kids, and are miserable, and come on my YouTube videos and start hating. It's like, why do you think you're still single? It's because of that attitude, right? It's because of that attitude. It's the same thing with this ex-girlfriend I was talking about just now. It's like, shit, I mean, that is a relationship that, I'm glad it worked out the way it did, because, I look back on it, I'm like, shit, that chick did not have my back. I don't want to be with a girl that does not have my back. So that's why even back then, when she was out the door and she was like, oh, I'm leaving, and I met somebody else, I'm like, go, right? I just didn't care. I'm like, I don't care how hot you are, just go. I'm like, I don't like this abuse, right? Because it was getting abusive, man. I was like, I don't want to put up with your abuse anymore. Go give it to him. And I'm sure she abused that guy too, right? I mean... Yeah, I'm pretty sure she did. That guy was like the biggest idiot in the world, by the way, because there was one point, it was like, I want to say it was like a month or two later. It was like, no, actually it was like 3 months later. She came back for her stuff, right? She came back to our place to get the rest of her stuff. She was already with this guy, came back, and as she was grabbing her stuff, we just had like a moment in like a tiny moment where we started talking, and there was some slight attraction there, and then we ended up hooking up. Had sex, right? Very quickly, and that was it. Never saw her again after that. Never happened again after that, right? But she left. That was that. It was just like one last shot, I guess. And then the guy had ended up calling. I don't know how he got my number, but he called, and he was like, hey, is she there? She's just supposed to pick up her stuff. And just to spite him, I was like, yeah, she was here. We had sex. He was like, no, you didn't. I was like, actually we did. I could tell you what color panties she was wearing. I was so evil back then. I was super evil. I was like, I could tell you what kind of color panties she was wearing. He was like, no, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. She just went to get her stuff, and I trust her. I was like, this guy is the biggest chump in the world. And I was like, okay, whatever you say, dude. I was like, what a chump. Super chump, right? And so, yeah. So that was that. But that was in, I think that guy, she ended up like dumping or cheating on that guy as well. And now she's just, again, she's living alone, stereotypical damaged goods female living alone with cats. So she's fulfilling that prophecy. It didn't have to end that way for her, right? I mean, she had me. She could have got me. But again, I do not regret what happened, because I'm far more happier where I am today without her than if she were to have stuck around, right? So I'm far happier not having her in my life in any way, shape, or form. But I just wanted to share this story with you, because she was an ex-girlfriend who dumped me when I hit rock bottom, and then literally freaked out. And literally my buddy was like, yeah, she literally flipped out when I put on your YouTube channel or your Instagram, and you were showing, like, there was like a couple of videos on my Instagram where I kind of highlighted my like what my income was for that month. And I think I did that for some haters who were like hating on me and are like, no, it's not true. So that video was for them, but apparently like he shared it with them. He was like, oh, she just like flipped out because she knew that she made a mistake. And that's what he was telling me. He was like, he was kind of like pushing in, like shoving it in her face, because he was around back then too when she just kind of took off on me. And he remembered that, so he wanted to share that with me. He was like, "Oh, dude, I totally like put your put your social media on the screen because we were all watching TV in the living room, and she was just like, I don't want to see it. I don't want to turn it off. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. He was like, she is like a vampire, like when the light hits the vampire, and they just start like lighting up. So yeah, it was pretty good feeling to hear that. I won't lie. So fellas, you might find yourself in the same situation that I was with this girl, where you got a chick who has dumped you, or you're with a chick now who is about to dump you because she doesn't feel like you're going to become anything. She feels like she could get better than you. She wants to exercise her open hypergamy. She thinks she could get the BBD. She has SOS, shiny object syndrome. She thinks the grass is greener on the other side, and she's about to cut you off. Let her do it. Okay? Let her do it. And you go out there and you become successful. That is the best revenge for any ex-girlfriend. Because a lot of you guys ask me, like, how do I get back at my ex-girlfriend? How do I get back at that bitch? And I tell you guys, the best revenge is to become successful. The best revenge is to become happy. The best revenge is to date younger, hotter, more attractive women than she is. And she saw all of that, by the way. My ex saw all of that. Like, when my buddy brought up the... he brought up like my social media, and he had like, oh, I have all these photos with these other girls who are, you know, much younger than her, obviously, much more attractive. She's like, oh my God, turn off. He was like, she was literally just lost it. She like literally blew a fuse. And I'm like, hey, I don't blame her. I would too, man. I would too. It's kind of like throwing away a winning lottery ticket, right? Just, you know, the lottery ticket's gonna pop, but nope. Let me throw this in the trash. I don't need this lottery ticket, right? And then a few years later, you're dead broke poor, and you're like, shit, that lottery ticket was worth millions. But that is the best revenge, guys. If you know, you had an ex who dumped you, and you're just, you know, resentful about it, the best revenge is to become successful. The best revenge is to become happy, to be happy without her, to move on without her. That is the best revenge, right? And these days with social media, you don't even need to shove it in her face. She could look you up. They had some crazy statistic I read once about like ex-girlfriends looking up ex-boyfriends. I mean, the majority of them do it. So at some point she is going to look you up, and you want to be able to just showcase what an incredible lifestyle you're living, and how successful you become, and how happy you are, and how glad you are that you're not with her anymore, right? So that is the best revenge. So let me know what you think. Drop some comments below. And until next time, this is M from the 33 Secrets signing out. Don't forget to smash that like button below. Go ahead and smash it right now. Also, hit that notification bell so that you're notified whenever I release a brand new coaching video here on the YouTube. More importantly, guys, please make sure you subscribe. Okay, it helps me out a ton, especially with the YouTube algorithm when you guys are subscribed to my channel. So please make sure you're subscribed. Also share it with other like-minded friends of yours. And for you guys who want to support my work and all of this red pill, gold pill, platinum pill, diamond pill content I'm teaching guys even further, the best way to do that is by jumping into my monthly online coaching program, 7 Months to Mastery, where I'm teaching guys just like you how to go out there and approach and close the youngest, hottest, and most beautiful looking women on the planet. I'm talking about 8s, 9s, and 10s, same exact type of women that myself and all of my coaching students all around the world are approaching and closing every single week. And I kid you not, every single week we are doing this in all 4 corners of the globe, regardless of any lockdowns, shutdowns, racial division. We are continuing to live our lives and approach and close the hottest, youngest, most beautiful looking women on the planet. Again, 8s, 9s, and 10s, same exact type of women that I teach you how to go out there and approach and close. So if you want to support my work and you want to learn how to approach and close the hottest, youngest, most beautiful looking women on the planet yourself, then you need to jump in to my monthly online coaching program, 7 Months of Mastery. And right now it's only $1, right? It's only $1. Still only $1 for the entire first month of coaching lessons. So please take advantage of it, okay? Take advantage of it and learn how to do it yourself. Okay, real easy to get signed up. All you need to do is click that link below in my description box. It will take you over to my website where you can get signed up right now. It just takes 2 seconds. So do that now, and I will see you in my next coaching video.